Darnell Radford back in the States. After a wonderful time at Edinburgh Festival Fringe, we now turn our focus locally to two festivals. The 2019 Fringe Arts Festival and the new Free Fringe Philly. Not sure how I'm going to squeeze it all in, but I'm certainly up for the challenge. So stick with us here on Rep Radio and also on Broad Street Review Podcast. September is all Fringe, local Fringe. So ride with us. Emory is on the move. I'm excited. Do you have your tickets? And tickets, as in plural, because theater is more fun with a +1. So stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. On today's podcast, Director Joseph Ahmed talks about the Tribe of Fools production, Operation Wawa Road Trip. In true Tribe of Fools fashion, a celebration of Philadelphia local color mixed with dance, circus arts, and heartfelt storylines. Here's my interview with Director Joseph Ahmed. Welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm in Rep Radio's Studio B, and if you're paying attention, you know exactly where we are. And I am here kind of in the thick of it. The 2019 Fringe Arts Festival is alive and well, and if your schedule is anything like mine, you're probably a little overwhelmed, but in a good way. I got to see a bunch of shows this weekend, and I'm sitting here with the director of one of them. Here we're going to talk about Tribe of Fools production of Operation Wawa Road Trip, and I'm here with the director, Joseph Ahmed. Joseph, welcome to Rep Radio.
Thank you. I'm excited to be chatting.
So I feel like there's a handful of people that I'm definitely aware of, but never had the opportunity to sit and chat with, and you're one of them. So
that's good to hear.
Welcome to Rep Radio.
Thanks.
It only took 10 seasons to get you here, but you're here. So I always look forward to Tribe of Fools productions. Anti-Hero I could not stop talking about because... You know, my friends who are not theater people are sort of like gamer geeks and comic book nerds, and I said, oh my god, I found one that's right for you! You have to come see this! And then after that, it was just knocked out of the... I mean, it was always knocked out of the park with Tribe of Fools, and then after that it was Fishtown, and Fishtown was one I couldn't stop talking about too, and now here we are with Operation Wawa Road Trip. But before we get started on that, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I wear many hats. I sort of do most of the things in theater in some way, except for design usually. So I'm an actor, I'm a director, I'm an interactive experience designer. I play musical instruments, I sort of do all the things. I grew up in this area in South Jersey. In like Pennsauken, pretty nearby.
Okay.
I went to school up in Boston, and then I've essentially been in Philly since then. I've been like permanently in the city for about the last 5 years, and Philly's really turned into my home. And a big part of that is Tribe of Fools.
Cool.
Tribe of Fools, since from Anti-Hero on, has really been one of like the main places that I've landed in the city that combines a lot of my interests. I'm a circus teacher and interested in circus arts. So Tribe of Fools lets me do kind of a little bit of everything, of new play development, of movement and choreography, of things that are funny but also have some kind of point to them that aren't just fluff.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to catch wind. It's like we can't just stuff a message down someone's throat. We have to do a little bit of combination of things. So it's been my thought process that people are entering into our theaters for one of three things, or some sort of combination of them all. They want to be entertained, of course. They want to be educated, and they also want to be validated. So sometimes they're sitting there to just validate how they already feel, but if not, they're going to get education. So they pull in, oh, I didn't know that, so now I know. And people look at theater as gospel, so they're not only want to be entertained and validated for stuff that they feel, but they also want to be able to take something away that, like, I didn't know that. I learned something today in this theater. So we should just pass a collection plate around every theater, and maybe we can get the exemption. I mean, we already have exemption, but probably the same one that churches get.
Yeah, that's great. I like those 3 categories. That's a really,
but I think they cover everything.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there are bits and pieces of other things too, but I think they kind of call back to all of that. And, you know, sometimes you look up and you're like, wow, this company does all of this. And so I can pull in my friend who's not a hardcore theater person, who's going to have fun first, you know, but will also learn something, because through that fun, it's teaching them some elements of whatever. And, you know, might actually say, hey, you know, I did believe in that thing too, or feel that way as well. Yeah, so we're there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Operation Wawa Road Trip. I mean, the title in itself says we have to go see it. It's like you can't see a production in Philadelphia FringeArts Festival and not see the ones with Philadelphia in them. But tell us about Operation Wawa Road Trip.
Sure. So the show essentially is a road trip from Ohio to Philadelphia that 2 siblings take. It's in the wake of the death of their father, and their mission is to scatter his ashes in the parking lot of the Wawa that they grew up going to, or at least that one of them really remembers going to. And so the structure of that road trip gives us a chance to meet all sorts of wacky characters along the way, as you know, if you haven't seen it. And to have all these sort of misadventures as they go. But then we're diving deeper into a couple really more poignant themes about how to grieve, how different people deal with grief, and the different things that family means to different people. We start to learn as we go about how the siblings have these different relationships to their family and to their dad, and all these things sort of come out as the night gets later and the journey progresses. I like to describe the show as a mix of Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle and Little Miss Sunshine. So we get some of that sort of like wacky, surreal.
It's going to be crazy, but it's also going to have some heartfelt moments.
Yeah, which is our goal as Tribe of Fools. Is that I like the analogy of like the kids' gummy vitamins. You're like, oh, I'm having candy, but there's actually something good for me in here. So I think our shows are like that a lot of times.
Apparently I'm
like,
healthy, but I'm still doing happy dance.
But I'm still having candy. It's great. So we think that something heart-wrenching or something poignant or something educational lands best with people when they're also being entertained, when we're not afraid to tell a joke along with it.
Yeah. So I'm always interested to know, what does a Tribe of Fools production look like on the page?
That's a good question. That's sort of evolved over the years. When I first came in for Antihero was a process that had a writer who was working with them, but a lot of things were really sourced from improvisations in the room. And then those things would get written down and pages would come in. Now we have a writer who is a company member. So we have a little bit more of a script to start with, where the company will get together, decide on the themes of the project, a few of the things we want to see in it, and then Caitlin Corkery, who's the writer, went away and wrote a first draft of everything. And then essentially from there, once we got the actors in the room, we continued to like rehash through that. We'd play with bits in the room, we'd rewrite scenes, sometimes it would be improvisation, sometimes it would be stuff that Caitlin would come in with. And so really everything would sort of get battered around to the whole room as we go, so that we have a script to start with, but the thing that ends up on the stage is really a product of everyone's involvement. The designers have been put into the story and the plot. We're all continuing to refine everything until we have a story that we feel really happy with.
Yeah. So you're all in on the outline part of it.
Yeah.
Piecing the puzzle.
Exactly.
Together. I've been seeing a lot of I consume a lot of theater, and then I also consume a lot of media. It's crazy that I manage to get all the time. But I was thinking about a Netflix show where they just kept jabbing at Netflix the whole time, and I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, see, there we go. This is what they're doing. So I always love when they kind of just pull in everything that's so familiar, but also this is a story. But whenever I experience things like that, it then provokes the question, like, could this piece exist outside of the organization that presents it. So when you think about a Tribe of Fools production, they're so unique, authentically Tribe of Fools. But could these productions be, published? Could it be could it be a publication at Dramatist that we could get and then put our own sort of spin on it, or would the script still make it feel like Tribe of Fools?
That's a really interesting question. I think that there is a world where that could happen. I think that there'd be some, I think that now if you look at the script of Operation Wawa Road Trip, you'd have chunks where you'd be like, oh, it doesn't actually reflect exactly what I saw on stage. Because there's actor ad-libs, there's choreography that's different than the stage directions, things like that. But I do think there could be a version of a script that could be made that could pretty accurately reflect what goes on stage for a Tribe of Fools show. I think the tricky things with that are fundamentally a Tribe of Fools show has that flexibility in it, where even though we have a script, it's so important to us that there's a little bit of play. There's some lines that come out of actors' mouths differently every night, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And also we're Philly specific. We're specific to this area. So I think I have the question with that of, are people in Florida gonna want to do a Tribe of Fools show? Will it still resonate with those people?
Well, Florida has Wawa.
That's true. They do have Wawa. So maybe Florida is the prime place to take Tribe of Fools. But we try so hard to really draw on the particular humor and pathos of this place that we live in, both to ground what we're telling in the place, but also so that there are those little entry points where you're like, right, 76 is terrible and gets blocked up every few feet, and there's something so satisfying about just hearing that mundane fact of your life reflected in a play. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see Tribe of Fools shows happening somewhere else. I think that there's a few sort of obstacles in the way of that happening, and I don't know what it would feel like to go to, I don't know, Santa Fe and see a Tribe of Fools show.
So for all these pieces, I always think about, especially for Fringe, if a show is only an hour, how do I talk for 30 minutes about a 1 hour production without quoting any parts of the piece? But this one, there are some fun things we can do. So I'll ask you, can you think of your earliest experience at Wawa?
My earliest experience at Wawa? I think that Wawa has been so fundamental to my life that I probably can't pull out a first memory. Having grown up in this area, it's one of those things that's just sort of always been there for me. A lot of my strongest memories of it are when I was doing just getting into theater, and I was doing summer teen theater programs of going out during after rehearsals or during tech weeks and doing Wawa runs with the cast and coming back into rehearsal with hoagies and chips and all of the different things for everyone, and it was always such a grounding point. And the fact that they're open 24/7, I feel like I have so many late night teen memories of well, we'll go to Wawa because that's the place that is open and is gonna feed us and take care of us in this moment.
I thought it was interesting that now suburban Wawas have returned to the gas station portion of it, but they were always there from the very beginning. I remember the one in my town in South Jersey had one pump sitting right out front, and years after they had stopped offering gas, it was still out there. I remember the original logo that had the geese on it. And I just remember walking in there as kids going how much can I get with this? Yeah. I remember Tasty Cake when they were Tasty Cake, because whatever it is now, that is not Tasty Cake. Tasty Cake, Tasty Baking Company, you're not baking Tasty Cakes anymore.
Right. Different.
You can ask any Philadelphian, those are not Tasty Cakes. A pie falls apart in your hands now. Before, I don't know what happened, but you gotta go back to the drawing board on that. But I remember prices, how prices changed. It was I used to get these for $0.25, and now they're $2 each. This is crazy. Or now they're popping up everywhere. It used to be there's only a couple that you can get to, and then they sort of disappeared, and then they kind of came back with this grand hurrah, but then
Yeah.
there was, I think there is a love-hate here, but it's heavy on the side of love for Wawa. But one of the things that the piece tackles that I have yet to experience is the other Wawa. And that's Sheets.
Yep.
Have you ever been to a Sheets?
I have been to a Sheets. I have not spent a lot of time in Sheets because I sort of like to say that the state that I grew up in is this weird little circle of South Jersey and Philly.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, most of New Jersey I don't have any relationship to, and most of Pennsylvania I don't feel like I have much relationship to.
Yeah.
Our writer, Caitlin, is way more familiar with like Western Pennsylvania Sheets territory, so we did have that perspective in making this. I just find it really fascinating how much hate people have for Sheets. How it like in the same way that you get like sports team loyalties, which is another thing that Tribals has looked at. People have such strong feelings about Wawa versus Sheets. You bring it up in a room of people from this area, and like arguments will erupt.
Yeah.
Even if it's an argument of like, yeah, we love Wawa and Sheets sucks, you'll still get an argument with each other.
Philadelphia is home of either or. It's a versus. We're very competitive. We're a very competitive town.
Yeah.
It's because of our teams and how dare you say something bad about any of our teams? Like, you don't even have to be a hockey fan, but you are rooting for the Flyers. You don't have to be a baseball fan, but you are rooting for the Phillies.
It's true.
Same thing with the Eagles and the Union is the indoor. Is that indoor soccer? I did get that right.
Yeah, and I
so
think
much
Wawa's one of
there.
our teams, right? It's
Yes.
like it's the same thing. Where,
Yes.
like if you mess with Wawa, you're messing with us.
Now, on
and
the
even
plus
when it's
side-
kind of dumpy,
Yeah.
it's still that's our place.
But there isn't a Sheets here, and I don't think Sheets will ever
I don't think so.
have an opportunity. We have others stuff like Old Nelson and things like that, but I don't think they can compare to Wawa.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah. So tell us about our leads, our heroes.
Sure.
Here.
So the way the sort of cast is structured is we have 3 actors who play the ensemble who play. I think it's like a dozen some different characters over the course of the play, but they're all surrounding Lee and Joey, who are the 2 siblings at the core of it. And really, what we start to see as the play goes on is that the 2 of these siblings have very different relationships to their dad and also to their understanding of family. Lee was really close to Dad, and has the really strong connections to family traditions and doing things with the family, and having things sort of have this peachy glow around them. And Joey didn't know Dad as well, and is in a place where he wants to be living his life. He feels like he's always been the sidekick. He's always sort of getting kicked around and following the wake of what everyone wants to do. And he's just at that point where he's like, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to live my life. And so we start to see the ways that, despite how much they love each other and are trying to be there for each other in the wake of this tragedy, fundamentally what they want from each other and what they want from being in a family are really different things. And so we get to see them trying to hash through this as they get more sleep deprived driving along the turnpike.
I like the advent of the radio station that's coming through, which makes for fun little interludes to kind of pop in.
Yeah.
Talk about how that was added in.
Sure. Well, one thing that we've done a couple times in Tribal Fools shows that we were talking about sort of how, in some ways, Tribal Fools has this really specific style. One thing that we did a little bit in Fly Eagles Fly is we had like sports game announcers last year who were actually just describing sort of the thoughts and feelings of the characters on stage. Yeah. And there's something that feels really right about that, of taking these things that we encounter in our lives and our journeys, and then in our shows finding humor and also finding the ways to check in with characters by making those things about the characters and the journeys that they're on. So the radio station was originally, it was just one song was in there that Caitlin had written, and Janice, who is the radio singer, is this amazing guitarist and musician. So we were like, this is so good. Yeah. Everyone who saw it loved it, that we need some more. So Janice, we basically went through and found a couple of spots in the script that would make sense to have a song as a transition or to fill in there. And then Janice went away and like wrote the lyrics, wrote the music for it. I literally came into rehearsal one day and she was like, here are the songs. I've written them. And like we had to judge them a little bit, but it was one of those great moments of like that actor and her skill set just really like took us to that place.
A solid foundation.
Yeah.
Great. I like. I'm thinking about all the bits and pieces of it all. It's like, you know, just the elements, the framework of the scenic design looks very reminiscent of a classic, probably a suburban Wawa, more of a suburban Wawa. And the car I thought was really functional. I was like, oh, this is clever. You know, just a simple, you know, listing back and forth makes it feel like you're on a highway driving and all that. So I like those and those elements. There's so many little bits and pieces. Like you can tell, you can always tell when there are a bunch of eyes on something.
Sure.
So that all these little things are in there. Like I heard a comment about edges at the top of the show. I was just like, that is very current.
And that's an actor ad lib.
Yeah.
That was we were like, this is sort of what we want to happen in this little scene. Actors make up a couple lines, do what you want to do. I think that especially in a Tribal Fool show, you get so much of that because we let the actors have input. The designers are talking about plot. The car. Yeah. Originally, I had an image for like a much more like mimed car where the ensemble's bodies were becoming part of it. And then our set designer, Peter Smith, who's also a company member, was like, I want to make a car. I think it'll be so cool to have this Flintstones car that they can move around with their feet. And I was skeptical at first. I was like, where are we going to put it? Where are we going to store it on stage? It's going to be a nightmare. When can you build it for us? And I think it really ended up providing this really nice grounding of the image of being in that car and being in that isolation in the middle of the turnpike. I would never have had that idea. There's so much of my job as a director, especially with Tribal Fools, feels like just listening to all the good ideas around me and then finding the ways that they work in to help the process.
Yeah. Were there any parts of the I guess, so the way we're seeing it now, was this always the timeline, or were there some parts where it was like, oh, maybe we should visit that earlier in the piece as opposed to later? How did the timeline come about?
The structure of it was come up with in sort of our first initial workshops with Caitlin, the writer, and the rest of the company. So we sort of originally we were thinking about like, is it a cross-country road trip to Wawa? And we ended up settling on this like 8-hour overnight from Ohio. Yeah. Because it gives us the opportunity to have the whole play happen over the course of one night, essentially. And then from those initial ideas, Caitlin sort of wrote down and put together all the different like bits we had talked about. Where we were like, we want to have this like encounter at Sheets, so we know we want to land there somewhere in the middle. From there, I think that the main thing that gets rehashed a lot during the process was the ending, because endings are hard, and endings in device theater are especially hard. So we spend a lot of time going back and forth about, like, really, what is the satisfying ending? We want to leave people feeling like they've really gone on this journey for a reason, but also not wrap everything up too neatly in a bow. Yes. So there's still some tension lingering with you when you leave the theater. So I remember there was a time when we had Caitlin write a couple different versions of ending scenes, and then read them with the actors to see okay, what happens if we do it like this? What does it feel like if we have this other character come in? What happens if these two have a whole different relationship at the end? Yeah. And in the end, what was cool is that we actually ended up landing on something pretty much like the first thing that had been written, and we just needed to sort of explore a lot to make sure that that was actually what we wanted.
Yeah. No, it was Lee and
Joey.
Joe. So, I definitely felt like Joe was withholding something, and still withholding something from us, which was interesting. And I didn't feel like, oh, I wanted that. I wanted to know exactly what it was, because when you start thinking about why would children have any kind of distance from their parents? It's something in there that we definitely want to try to understand, because we all start to, either we have a close bond with our parents, or we start to drift apart as we get older, and we start to wonder why. What are those things? like even for myself, I had to look back on, my life and say, like, there was something I was totally projecting blame elsewhere that was me the whole time, or maybe it's not even, oh, no one's at fault here. This is just the situation of how things happen. But yeah, definitely the way it ends, it left me thinking, like, oh, there should definitely be a part two, or this is
That's a good
how
feeling to have. I like
this
that.
is how a one act is.
Yeah.
Where a one act arguably ends where it could also begin.
Yeah.
So I do like that there. While we did reach an end point, but the end point is just something new.
Mm-hmm.
It's something more. It's like, so even though we did get here, there's still more to this story. So that was fun to watch.
And I think that we like to leave people at the end of the show with a tension left, because I think that's what keeps it from just being fluff, from just being entertainment. Our hope is that by not wrapping things up in a neat bow, that hopefully those themes and whatever tension that is can walk out of the theater with people, and it can give you the question of, like, oh man, like, what do I think about my family? Like, do I have these kinds of relationships? Do I avoid things in the same ways that I see these characters avoiding and denying what's going on with them inside? So the hope is that has some added resonance, because we don't leave it in the theater.
Let's talk about the choreography. It's like its own. It's like one of the actors in the piece, because it's so quintessentially Tribe of Fools. Like, the team's ability to tell a story through that choreography is always just, is always amazing to watch. You're watching the whole thing as it's playing out, and it's as if there is dialogue here, but there isn't. But it's still carrying you through. It's not like a frozen moment in time where we're just watching some choreography happen. It's still very much telling all of that. So what did that look like in the rehearsal process? Did you have days where you're just focusing on the choreography and, worrying about the other scenes afterwards? Or what sort of fun can you tell us about?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a long
moments.
journey. We have a pretty long rehearsal process because the movement takes so long to build. And as with everything, it is a group effort. A lot of it came from we sort of, in our initial sketch, came up with the numbers essentially that we wanted to have, of like, oh, we know we want to have a big fight in sheets. That's the thing we want. We know we want something at the beginning that's movement focused, that drops us into the story. And then from there, our choreographer, Zach Chiaro, who's also a company member, would take those ideas and go away and come back in with proposals for the choreography. And then myself and Terry Brennan, the artistic director, who are the most acrobatically experienced members of the company, we'll sort of look at the numbers and start to think about, okay, what ways can we bring in the acrobatics and the circus elements of what we do? Because that's a really important part of the spectacle of the shows we like to make. And in this particular process, for the most part, we focused on getting as many of the physical bits built early in, like, June, so that way we had a sort of a longer time to rehearse those, because they're tiring. And, we have a cast that ranges in age from their mid-20s to, like, close to their 50s. So it's a demanding show, and it's really hard to find actors who are as strong in their acting skills and also in their bodies to be able to do these shows. We're lucky to be working with an amazing ensemble. So starting them in June, our hope was, like, we will really get these so you know what they are, they're going to demand of you, and then we can run them so we have a sense of what the show is going to take. So some days would be just working on acrobatic tricks and doing conditioning. Some days would be working on choreography. Some days would be putting it all together.
I always envision if we went to the Tribe of Fools Theater, it would be something like a skate park with stadium bleachers or something, because everything has this sort of element. It's like, there's gonna be flips in this thing, right? Yeah, but it's a heartfelt love story. Yeah, but there's gonna be flips in this, right?
But there's also those tricks, right?
Because like I said, it's just it's so uniquely Tribal Fools. I mean, you can't compare what we're going to see on stage here to anything else that's out there. And whether that's good or bad, for whatever you're listening to. I mean, that is something that's really hard to do, especially when you're thinking about fringe. If you're not going to create something from scratch, you might find a celebrated piece of work that has some sort of fringe bent to it that you can do, but creating it specifically for the festival is a good thing. I mean, do you foresee this going on beyond the festival?
That's a good question. Occasionally, Tribal Fools shows have lasted past the Fringe Festival. I know Heavy Metal Dance Fag, like 6-ish years ago, had a little run at the Annenberg after that. In many ways, it sort of depends on if we get interest from presenters. Because if so, there's definitely a chance that could happen. It's a big show. Big show. It has a lot of elements. It takes a lot of like time and conditioning for the actors to be in shape to be doing it. So really what we're committed to is continuing to create new things. Which is the Fringe, and then also we've started producing for Theater Week in February. Cool. And so those are smaller shows. So they're duos, they're solos. So those are really the shows that last around longer, mainly because for a small theater company, putting up a Fringe show of this size that we're doing means that Terry has to sit down and send 10 crowdfunding emails at 5 in the morning the whole summer. Because we're small, we don't have the infrastructure that the Arden or the Walnut have to be presenting these things.
Well, his promotion, the crowdfunding campaign for this is a production in itself.
Yep.
And it is something I was looking forward to every morning. I'm like, what is he going to do today? I assume that they're all collected somewhere. If you have like a gala, they just play back and forth. They just play. That. Here's Terry in various states of undress.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I mean, Terry really, I think, is kind of a genius at crowdfunding. He's the first person I've met who, like, when he does a crowdfunding campaign, he has a strategy. And if he does the strategy, it works. And the last couple years, what we had done is, once we got about halfway through, we started to do push-ups for every $1 that we got. And what we ran into was, that's just actually 6,000 push-ups. And so we would have trouble with actually keeping up with the amount we needed to do while also rehearsing a show. So this year the idea of doing personalized burlesque numbers, since we always do a holiday burlesque, that's a big part of the company.
Builds up to that.
Exactly. So this was a really fun idea and a nice way for us to be really giving something specific back to the people who donate, because that's so important to us. And also, to have it be something creative and something that people can look forward to that's giving some amount of entertainment.
There was one of those in there where everything comes off and then very slow-mo, like 2 boots fall from the sky, and you're like, yep, that was everything. It's so much fun. Terry has so much fun doing them, and like he's such a genius with using like the time-lapse component on iPhones. I know, so I'm blown away. I'm like, I'm an IT professional. I can't figure out this Instagram story. It's not like everybody's like, I'm like, there's a whole section for stickers in here? I don't even know how that works. He's really, I mean, it's amazing. Terry is, I've learned so much from Terry over the course of the last few years and how he runs Tribal Fools. And I think that it's a really special thing. And I wasn't one of the founding members, so it feels so special to me to like have found such a home in Tribal Fools where I appreciate the work so much, and I also always feel like I can be adding in my own priorities into the process, and that those are really heard and incorporated by the company. Do you have is there a moment is there a moment in the piece that stands out for you the most, or is there a favorite scene? Or
that's a good question. So I'll answer that, I guess, in 2 ways. I mean, I think that what feels like sort of the iconic gesture of the piece is the sort of Wild West brawl that happens when our heroes, who are Wawa fans, arrive at a Sheetz. And we have a lot of fun with really... I think it's because there is this conflict between Wawa and Sheetz in this area of taking that and being like, okay, we're going to take this conflict that we see and explode it and play the whole thing out and really make it into this big bit. So I find that very satisfying. my own personal favorite moment, which is a very small moment, but it's just because it's a joke that I thought of like a year and a half ago, and it somehow made it into the show. There's a car chase that happens.
Yes, that's
which
what I
is
was gonna say.
which is quite Mario Kart themed.
Yes,
which I find very fun because I love Mario Kart. But there's a joke in it where there's the cars are chasing each other and then they come across a pothole and they have to slow down to clunk over the pothole. And then the final thing is they're being chased by a cop, so the first car comes and it clunks over the pothole. Second one comes, clunks over the pothole. The third one comes and then it falls through the pothole and is never seen again. Which I just think it's a hilarious joke. Yeah. And especially like driving around the streets of Philly, I'm just like, this could literally happen. I know it might be the day where my car goes in a pothole.
Very deep potholes.
And I'm just gone. That's the end of
like, how does no one see this?
How does no one fix this in 2 weeks?
This is a pretty heavily driven road. Like, just, block it off for a couple of days, get it done.
Just fix it. just put some sand on anything.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it feels really satisfying to be a company that's dedicated to like looking at the city and the area around us and making what we do based off of that, because we get to do those super specific jokes where there's those people sitting there who are like, yep, 22nd Street, know what you're talking about. That's a joke I relate to.
You're like, oh my god, I feel like 20th Street's been under construction for like the past 2 years at least. It's like they've been running pipes up and down like South Philly to going up north. And it does seem like every time you turn around, there's some road work being done. And we're small. We're not like New York where there's, nope, we got a new skyscraper coming up. There's always a new skyscraper. Here, it's just always road work.
It's constant.
I mean, on the plus side, our city is always improving. So we can look at it that way, but it is still annoying when you're trying to get to work. You're like, why are we at a snail's pace on this accordion bus?
And it's, well, I mean, as someone who like I sort of travel the city in like every form of transportation. Because I use the Indigo bike share, I drive, I take the bus, I take SEPTA, I do all of it. So like the roads are just in such a state somehow where like, I'm like, I don't know, how did this pothole come here? Are they midway through working on it? Did like a truck run over it too hard? Yeah. It's so hard to tell.
And when they just paved over a road, like, I know they did this last summer because I was annoyed by how long it was done. And there's a pothole already? Like, jeez. Yeah. It was like, I guess, people phone it in at every job.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's probably not that, whoever did a lackluster job, and that's why there's a hole there. It's just, when you think about it, you're like, well, I mean, if you painted a wall and somebody smudges up against that wall and now there's a scuff mark on this freshly painted wall.
Gotta repaint it. It's true. It's a constant struggle.
Let's see. Is there anything else you want to say about Operation Wawa Road Trip?
I don't know. I mean, I think the only other thing is, I think that this is a really special piece to me because all of our Tribe of Fools shows get into some amount of social issue, and this one I think especially is really like just a personal, emotional story about the two of these characters in the wake of this death that's happened in their family. Yeah. And for me, it's a really personal story because I lost my mom 2 years ago, quite suddenly, and so it's really special because this is the first time that I'm making any kind of artwork that deals with grief in any way. Yeah. And I think it's a really special piece to see as someone who has had that, because so much of what we dwell in is all the things that people do to try to make themselves feel better and to try to solve that problem, a problem that sort of can't be solved by anything except like time, really, and this like long healing process. But the chance to work on this as part of a Tribe of Fools show, where so much of what we get to do is tell jokes and let the funniness and the liveliness of this journey be the main thing that is bringing us along, I think it's really special, and it's the sort of dive into something like grief that, as someone who's been wrestling with that, I find it really empowering to have worked on and now to be able to go and watch in the theater. Yeah.
I think what's really great about the piece as a whole is while it is dealing with loss, it's not dwelling on grief. It's showing you that these crazy moments in life still happen, and that life still goes on. So they are still continuing to live and still going in their various paths. but it's also great to see a brother and sister bond and stay connected, because that is something that, you know, if you are fortunate to have that kind of family, it's great. But if you don't, sometimes loss is what brings you back to family and keeps you connected. And so, like that end, which I'm not going to give away, that's what makes that such an interesting moment. It's like, because we just had this thing, like it was all like the realization of this whole entire journey, which we have just experienced. Now we're getting to this point where we're thinking like, wow, is this bond going to be even stronger now? Like, what's going to happen for them as they move forward? And that's the part that says, okay, life begins. Yeah. And for this piece, that's why I can always say that a piece ends where sometimes it could also begin. You know, so that... Anyway, it's well crafted. I think it's well crafted.
I'm glad to hear that.
I can always find some interesting through line, which I think makes it great for people to come and experience the work. Yeah. The production is Operation Wawa Road Trip. It is presented by Tribe of Fools. It is in the 2019 Fringe Arts Festival. It is running through the 21st. It is at the Proscenium at the Drake. And it's a little bit of an upgrade from last season.
It's true. We moved literally next door from the Bluebird.
From the Bluebird to the Proscenium. Moving on up to the big house. Yeah, you can get these tickets by going to FringeArts.com. And also, if you download the app, you can actually favorite this show if you like. So that more people can experience this with you. And you should also buy 2 tickets. At least 2 tickets, because theater is more fun with a +1. Joseph Ahmed, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today and unpack this operation.
Thank you, this is awesome.
Now, let's go off to Wawa and get a hoagie.
I know, I need a hoagie now. Need some coffee.
Oh, okay. Okay, when you're at Wawa, what is your hoagie order?
That's a good question. So I usually get a shorty, toasted Italian, with spinach, tomato. The cheese depends.
Okay.
Depends. And then I add bacon.
Wow. All right.
That's
cool.
right. For like $1, however much it is.
It depends. If it's if it's late at night, it's a BLT.
Yeah.
It's always a BLT because I want that saltiness. But my uncle, when I was younger, I remembered going to Wawa back when they had the squeezer bottles. Yeah. That were like. They were like, you know, we're not going anywhere, plastic squeeze bottles, not these ones where you throw it out and no one's the wiser. But I remember he would always order a turkey shorty with a little bit of mayo, raw onions, lettuce, salt, pepper, and oregano. And I always get that every time. But
really?
And I love the fact that there's the option for a little bit of mayo, even though it is most of the time completely ignored.
That's really funny.
But that's my Wawa hoagie.
That's great. So you got some hoagie lineage there.
Yeah, you can't get
it's topical.
You can't get oil on it because it won't keep. It won't keep.
Not too much wet stuff in there.
No, exactly. Anyway, Operation Wawa Road Trip, Tribe of Fools, Joseph Ahmed. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you.
Rep Radio continues to be inspired by our community and listeners like you. We are proud to be an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.